Jon Moxley can sell you snake oil, and you believe it. What up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Marie Shadows of the Square Circle Podcast. And on this episode of Square Circle Podcast, we're going to be taking a look at Jon Moxley's promo since coming back as the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, which he is not my IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. And then also looking at what it means in the wrestling terminology for workhorse, because I had a very good discussion with some other members of the wrestling community over at Women's Wrestling Talk. And it featured me on the panel along with several others, and the Professor Gerard does a wonderful lead for the panel and the conversation and the questions. And he had said something last night which my mind automatically wanted to respond to, but then I had to take a moment and be like, wait a minute. I might have to defend is the wrong word, brain. I might have to define what workhorse is. But before we get too far ahead, this is going to be a video and a audio podcast episode for the Square Circle Podcast. I am here to teach. I am here to talk about promos. I am here to break it down and analyze professional wrestling promos along with matches for my tape study series. And I do this so that way wrestling can be better than it was yesterday. All I want is for wrestling to improve. All I want is wrestlers to improve so they can maximize all the gifts that they have, because professional wrestling is not easy. We know that. Professional wrestling is the hardest thing in the world. That's why, like me, after training for a couple of days after I left WWE, after WWE and I parted ways, went to training, and it wasn't for me. But podcasting, talking about wrestling, and really analyzing wrestling is what I do best. I am Marie Shadows. I have a specialty in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I have a specialty in breaking down matches, letting you know why certain moves are done, the psychology behind it, and trying to rekindle and trying to get back the lost art and the lost storytelling in matches. And this is why I'm so passionate about all of that. So basically, we're going to watch it. I'm going to talk through it. You're going to listen. And if you have any comments or anything, you could definitely leave them in the comment section below or email me or any of that. And I'll let you know the easiest way to find me. Now, with all of that being said, this is under fair use. I do understand that this is AEW's property, and at any time they can definitely strike the video at least, but this is under the fair use where I am giving criticism, commentary, and doing reactions to what is being said. Not necessarily just bashing things like how the IWC would just bash stuff, but this is more for a learning opportunity, a learning purpose to grow, because we all want wrestlers to grow, right? We want AEW to grow. I still want AEW to grow, even though I don't see any improvement during the past couple years. It's been really weird. It's like you guys should be improving rather than trying to be for the really small audience that seems to just pay the same price over and over again for pay-per-views. It's kind of crazy that in 2024 we're paying $50 per pay-per-view when everything is on a streaming site, when everything is either on Fight TV, Triller, we have the Ring of Honor Club, we got Netflix, we got Hulu, we got Disney. Almost everything is on a streaming service, and you're still paying $50 to watch a pay-per-view on a streaming service that can't give AEW a streaming deal. But that's neither here nor there. And again, before we jump into the video, I would like to say that it's funny reading comments from everybody. Like, you can comment on my stuff, you can send me messages and stuff like that. But you have to remember and realize that I am analyzing what I see. I am looking at the bigger picture. I am looking at it from a business decision, a business perspective, not so much as a fangirl, not so much as a fanboy, not so much as an emotional fangirl or fanboy. because quite frankly, like, that doesn't help conversations. That doesn't help to improve the business. Yes, you can be a fan, but the moment that, you work in the business and stuff is the moment that you get to see things differently and you see things for the bigger picture. That's why, like, was it some years ago, the phrase were coined was the phrase that was coined was it's best for business. So you have to think about a lot of things that is best for business. Sometimes decisions are going to be difficult and they're going to be like on the mark, and then they're going to be not on the mark, and you got to, just pick one. You're not always going to be liked. You might end up having, your critics, but at the end of the day, it has to make sense business wise because you have to make money on the back end. If you cannot make money on the back end, that's why wrestling promotions fail. But then again, that's why all businesses would fail. If you're not making money on the back end, if you're not getting the supporters, if you're not getting any of that, like, you have to think about the bigger picture. And that's what some wrestling fans don't want to think about. They don't want to think about the bigger picture. They want to think selfishly. They want to think about themselves, and what benefits them is seeing their favorite wrestler always succeed, even if you're on the same boat with them, that you say yourself that you want to see them succeed too. I want to see them succeed. But if said wrestler, does not matter if it's man or woman, said wrestler does not improve, then it's like they're not listening. Because in the world of wrestling, it's about adapting. If you are not adapting, then you're going to get lost in the shuffle. You're going to get lost behind. You're going to be left behind rather than lost behind. So, I will say this again, like I said in my IWGP World Heavyweight Champion podcast episode. I want the best for Jon Moxley. I hope that his fans want the best for him too, rather than blindly being like, yay, let's go Moxley. Because there's a lot of flaws that he needs to improve on. And this isn't me just trying to get on him or nitpick or anything like that. My specialty is New Japan Pro Wrestling. I love that company. Most of my content is based on New Japan Pro Wrestling. Inside my content is sprinkled with MOW, when I used to talk about AEW, WWE, and indies, and me traveling and interviewing wrestlers. So my content, the Square Circle Podcast, has a lot of different elements that go into it. And if you are new, make sure to hit that follow button on YouTube, share it out, and also hit the follow button on Spotify to be a follower and never miss an update again from me whenever I post a new video, a new interview, or anything that is fun in professional wrestling. So, I would love to see Jon Moxley improve. What I think right now is that Jon Moxley is overexposed and he needs that time off. I have no idea when he has taken some time off. Him going to AA meetings and getting that sorted out does not count in getting a vacation. Getting a vacation will mean that he's taking at least a year off to, I was going to say go away from TV, but the proper way to say it is to cool off from TV, because he's everywhere and he's doing so much that it's like, I can't, not only can I not keep up, but more to the fact of like your legacy and the matches. Like, after he has a match, are we talking about it? No, we're not. Are we talking about the matches that he had before AEW was created? No, we're not. Are we having talks about anything in between? No. But we are currently talking about him as the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion because he took it off of Naito at Windy City Riot, which, again, I don't agree with that decision. Just because, like, Naito worked his ass off to make sure to get that title and finally had that title around his waist. We could have built his story up over time, and then whoever wins the G1, if Moxley won the G1, sure, he could go after Naito, get the championship title, and that'll be fine. But this was like Naito's last song, in a way. So by taking the title off of him so early, it's like, did you just want him to have it as a souvenir and that's it? You know, like, you couldn't let him have it for like half the year and then he can do whatever he wants, because he has said that he has nagging injuries, he has eye problems, he has this and that due to his wrestling career. So it's like, why couldn't he have it for a little bit longer? You know? The other thing I want to touch on too is that for anyone that gets emotionally upset by the things that I say, you need to talk about that with somebody, because it's a little weird to get emotionally upset at someone that doesn't agree with something that you love. And I get it. We all have passions. And I also get that, you know, sometimes that gets the best of us when we're like, don't talk bad about the person that I like. But if there is nothing being said that is hurtful and more helpful and more like, let's think outside the box, and more like, let's think about it in business decisions about why this is bad and why this doesn't make any sense. I am not trying to hurt anybody. I'm just trying to make sure that, again, wrestling is left better than it was yesterday, rather than making quick decisions that don't really, you know, work out in the end. We saw the partnership between AEW and TNA. Why do you think they're not working together anymore? Because AEW was like, we have to be on top. And it's very evident. The same way that AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, whenever a New Japan star comes over from Japan to wrestle on AEW, whether that is on Rampage or Collision, they lose. When I could tell you that the New Japan wrestler that came over is a beast, they, you know, have the best matches, there's story in their matches, like, they put on a good performance. But it's the partnership that feels, from the outside looking in, always one-sided. That's why I didn't really like this. It just felt like, let's just give it to Moxley because Moxley's not doing anything. Why is Moxley not going for the TNT Championship title? Why is Moxley not trying to form a tag team with one of his brethren from the Blackpool Combat Club, which doesn't even feel like a faction? It just feels like guys were thrown together. Oh, you guys know how to wrestle and shoot wrestle? Cool, you guys are going to be in a group. That's it. Why is he not forming a tag team with any of his Blackpool Combat brethren? Why? Why does he have to go over to New Japan Pro Wrestling to get a championship title where he's not even contracted to over there? He's still a contracted AEW wrestler and shows up every once in a while now because he's an AEW contracted wrestler. It would be mad weird if WWE did the same thing. If WWE has sent one of their guys over to New Japan Pro Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling gave them a belt to take over. Now, Carl Anderson does not count in this conversation. But I can see how if someone wanted to in the comments be like, hey, don't forget about Carl Anderson and the never openweight championship belt. But that was a whole fucking disaster in itself. That I was just like, this makes no fucking sense, but I'm going to leave it. It got fixed, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But if WWE did the same thing how AEW did so, I would still be like, what is this? You know, I don't think that by Moxley having the championship title that AEW fans are going to get a New Japan World subscription. It will be nice. So that way New Japan Pro Wrestling can increase their subscription numbers for them to end up getting, you know, more people over to watch New Japan Pro Wrestling and to be exposed to something that they're not used to, which is Japanese wrestling, Japanese, like their thought pattern and how they wrestle, how they present it, and everything like that. The New Japan Strong shows are cool to watch, but they are more tailored for a American audience than they are for a Japanese and American audience blended together. So I can't really use the New Japan Strong as a way to measure if AEW fans like New Japan Pro Wrestling and all the rest of the casuals like New Japan Pro Wrestling. I can't use Strong as that like measuring stick. The other thing too is that if you are an emotional fan, there is no reason to attack my credentials. There is no reason to attack what I've done in the past. There really isn't. I don't lie about anything. And just because I worked for WWE does not mean that like I want Jon Moxley back at WWE. It does not mean that it makes me biased on any front. I am more concerned about Jon Moxley either improving overall, promo-wise, wrestling-wise, if we want to call it wrestling, stop bleeding in every one of his matches, and like take it seriously. Look like you want to belong rather than just wanting to be there as a hobby. Because there's a lot of guys on the indies that end up looking like they want to be there as a hobby and don't take it serious. I've had those encounters. I've seen those. I've had that experience. I just don't want that for Moxley. You come from WWE, something of a juggernaut, to just want to be whatever it is. And it's like you still have to maintain some type of presentation about you and not just automatically be like, all right, I'm just going to be so, looking lazy, looking like this, looking like that. And again, this is me observing and not me attacking him. This is me observing like what it looks like. So if you want to introduce a casual fan that will constantly tell you that wrestling is fake and that how do you watch that and all this kind of stuff, and you're like, hey, I want you to sit down with me and watch a Jon Moxley match, and the way that he presents himself, that casual fan is not going to be converted over. They might be the 1% that will convert over, but the point I'm trying to make is that presentation is everything. You only get one chance on like your appearance, right? Like first appearances are everything as well. But because I followed Moxie's career, I know who he is as a character, or I try to know who he is as a character. I don't think he knows who he is as a character, but I followed his career so I can speak on it. It's not like I'm a casual just being like, oh my God, who this guy is and regurgitating what the internet says. I have a lot more deeper thoughts and opinions when it comes to like wrestling overall. So you would know that I do not regurgitate anything from the IWC or anything from the echo chambers. I'm always trying to give you guys a different perspective as to what it is in the world of professional wrestling. Going back to not insulting my accomplishments, just because I remove what I did for WWE in my Twitter bio does not mean that I don't talk about it so proudly when I'm on a podcast or if I have to revisit it, because I'll tell you this, I had no regrets going to WWE. That was my 7-year-old dream. And maybe one day I'll go back or another company will sign me. It is up to them. It is up to the universe. It is up to me and what I want to do. But I loved working at WWE. I love doing what I did at WWE. And no one is going to take that away from me. And no one's going to try to use it as a weapon or as ammo, because I am just so proud of my accomplishments. The same way that you should be proud of your accomplishments. So if you are a content creator out there, and if you are a wrestling content creator especially, do not let the emotional haters rain on your parade. Do not let the emotional haters tear your accomplishments down. Anything small should be celebrated. The big accomplishments should be celebrated. Do not let them tell you that anything bad, because, it's not right. No one needs to put you down. You're doing just fine, and you're going to make great strides in the end. It's going to take a little to get over, the bumps and the bruises, let's say, from emotional fans, because they want you to speak how they speak in their minds and agree with them that their favorite wrestler should be your favorite wrestler, or their favorite segment should be your favorite segment. And that's not how the world goes. That's not how you go. That's not how anybody goes, man. We are all individuals for a reason. We all think differently. We might have some common ground, which is great if we have common ground, but we all think differently. This podcast episode is not to make you think like you should be on my side for anything. This is for a resource. This is a teachable lesson. This is a reaction video to the promo and how Jon Moxley can improve, and how I'm going to explain to you that if Jon Moxley sold you some snake oil, that you'll buy it. Because as a human being who has a lot of passion, and I have a lot of passion about wrestling, and I have a lot of passion about how to do promos and, like, you know, the best way to go about a match, maybe not like what moves to do, because that's not like my forte, but if you want to capture professional wrestling fans and casual fans, what you would do is try to find a connection with them. And we'll dive more into it, into the promo itself. But I just wanted to get that out there that, like, I love what I did in the past. I loved working for WWE. I loved doing, I should say working on the WWE network. That's exactly what I did. I basically helped the millions upon millions of subscribers of the WWE network to make sure that whatever they were searching for came up, and that nothing odd came up. So that was my whole entire thing. And I have my website up that you can easily go and click on the website and look at everything that I have done. And by the way, if you don't believe what I did in the past, that's on you. I know what I did. I know what's true to me. And it's okay. You're still welcome here, even though you are an emotional hater. But I guess that is enough talk. Let's get into the Jon Moxley promo. Oh, hold on. Wait a minute.
Everybody's here to have a good time, Shabani. Soak it in, buddy. It's a great week. This is Dynasty Week, guys. We're kicking off Dynasty Week. That's right. We've got Dynamite tonight, and then this Saturday, 3 straight hours Collision, immediately followed by Rampage, and then less than 24 hours later, Dynasty live on pay-per-view. Our fans of Peoria, Illinois, we're going to be there on Saturday for that big 3-hour doubleheader at the Civic Center.
All right, here we go. Let's listen. And I will be pausing the video and talking about it. So,
Pay-per-view champ, the floor is yours.
One of the first championships I ever won, you know. Salvation Army Community Center in Fountain Square right here in Indianapolis. Funny. Now, even back then, 20 years ago, I was swimming upstream. I never really had the wind at my back. I've never had help. In fact, a lot of people try to tell me what I can and can't do, what I can and can't accomplish. Well, my message for them is the same now as it was 20 years ago. Kiss my ass and watch me.
okay, I'm going to stop it early, because this mentality, as much as I agree that, like, no one should really tell you, like, what you can't and cannot do, society is founded on the fundamentals and is founded on rules that make a society run. Whether you agree with those rules or not, the basic rules make society run. Now, I do know that in professional wrestling, there are just sleaze bags all around that will just be like, oh, you can't do this for X, Y, and Z. And they'll make it their mission for you not to like accomplish whatever you need to accomplish. And I totally get it. Those guys or girls or whoever, you don't have to listen to them. But sometimes when people are telling you, especially if it's like over and over again of like what not to do, and maybe look at it from a different perspective, maybe it won't be as bad as you think it is, because not everyone is trying to hold you back. Not everyone is trying to hold you down. That's why when people give info and advice to other people, you know, you take it with a grain of salt, or you take what I like to call wisdom nuggets. You take the wisdom nuggets that will work for you, because someone's advice may end up working for them, but you may find something that you connect with when they tell you that advice. Or if you just hear their advice and you're just like, no, none of that's going to work for me, you don't have to take it. You could just move on. But if you want to adapt and grow in this business, it doesn't hurt to listen. That's a big thing that now in the world, nobody wants to listen. Everybody wants to respond for the sake of responding. And everyone wants to tell people, don't tell me what to do. And nobody wants to listen, when listening is like a big part of life. You know, sometimes you really don't have to just brush people aside because you want to do it your way. You can do it your way. A lot of successful stories have been told and it's out there and have a spotlight on it of people doing it their own way. However, sometimes the person that really wants to help you has some really important things to say. You can't just, you know, go and dismiss it. You know, I'm just saying that, like, if you want to be smarter in life, you'll listen. That doesn't mean that you have to like take everyone's advice, because then like you'll get so flooded with like thoughts and overthinking, and you don't want to do that. But it doesn't hurt to just be a student of the game while still making your own path, making your own way, and getting to the top. Just want to put that out there. But also, in relation to this, as far as I know, Jon Moxley did CZW and then some more indie organizations, and then went to FCW, which was in connection with WWE, got called up, went to WWE, and then left WWE, did the indies again, was a mainstay in GCW, and then did New Japan Pro Wrestling for a little bit. Just because he's been off and on for like 5 years doesn't make it consistent. And then AEW. So, you know, he did it his way, but that's about it.
Watch me as I climb mountain after mountain after mountain. Because being great is not about what other people say. It's about what's in here.
Okay, he's been saying that for the last 5 years, and I hate it because it does not tell me anything. Okay, you climb mountain after mountain after mountain. Okay, what are those mountains? If I was a brand new viewer tuning into AEW Dynamite and I knew nothing of I got too ahead of myself. If I knew nothing about Jon Moxley's past, about being Dean Ambrose, right? I am letting you guys know, like, if I was a new viewer to AEW Dynamite and I knew nothing about Jon Moxley, and I was either watching by myself or I was there live, what mountains did you climb, sir? What is your past? Let me know your past. It's okay to talk about your past and like where you came from and what you did in your accomplishments. I think people should boast about their accomplishments more. I think people should talk about that, they came from humble beginnings. We can say that Jon Moxley came from CZW as, very wholesome beginnings. And then climbing his way all the way to WWE, and that's like the highest of the mountain. That's the biggest juggernaut. But if you're just going to be like, I climb mountain after mountain after mountain, that's not going to work. Like, what do you mean? Give me a little bit more story. Give me a little bit more classiness. Take me along on your journey, sir, so that way I can cheer for you. The other thing too is that, like, he says that greatness is not defined by like what people say. It's in here. It's all in here. What? I am all for someone believing in themselves. You should believe in yourself. Even if you think like the whole world is against you, you should believe in yourself, go after your dreams, go do it your way. However, if you ever notice that word of mouth, and this is for marketing purposes as well, where what do you call it? I'm trying to fix something here. This is for marketing purposes as well. They say that the most powerful tool in social media is word of mouth, right? We've seen it multiple times where like something will happen on social media and, it will travel so fast because everyone is either retweeting it, quote tweeting it, putting it on different forums and like just chatting about it, right? So the greatest tool in social media that doesn't need any money involved is word of mouth. And if you haven't noticed, the greats like Hogan, Flair, Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, Undertaker, HBK, Triple H, Edge. To throw in some AEW guys, because I know someone out there is going to be like, I'm always talking about WWE or something. The greats of the greats always get talked about by word of mouth. They never had to say that your greatness comes from with here. It does not come from anybody that's talking about it. No, you need people to talk about you. There is only so much that you as an individual can do if you are in the entertainment business, doing content creation, doing streaming. Yes, you could do it all. And it's hard work and, that's amazing. But if you really, 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 really want to like talk about it in like truth, it's the fans. It's people around you that you set yourself up with that will tell your greatness to everybody else and tell people to tune in, tell people to buy your merch, tell people to support you, tell people to like you don't tell people to line up at the meet and greet, but you get the idea of that, like, because they are following you and they support you, they will line up at the meet and greet, get your autograph, get whatever it is. But again, that is due to people talking about it. So greatness cannot just come from within here, because essentially it's still a team effort. It's not an I effort. It's an I effort when you turn off the camera and you go to like edit. But in order to like make everything work, you need an audience, right? Like, we had the pandemic where there was no audiences, but I can't really use that now, can I? I cannot use what I was going to think of. What I was going to say was that, like, imagine if wrestling had no fans, or you had no fans and they didn't show up for you and whatnot. Like, that would be pretty fucking devastating. So that's another thing that I don't like. That's not something that should be pushed. I think that, it's great to have a community behind you that will be like, hey, we believe in you just like you believe in you, and we're going to be here. That's how you become great. It's not just you. It's you plus everyone else. That is how you become great. It's not in here all the time. I'm going to say that again. It's not in here all the time, because we are our biggest enemies, meaning that we overthink, We doubt ourselves. We get imposter syndrome. The whole works. But when you have a community that knows that you are great, they will be there to help pick you up. And that's like one of my problems with Moxley. He says that the fans are the greatest in the world, but it still rings hollow that it's an I. It's I. Even if he doesn't like say it straight out, you know, it's the way that he thinks about his Moxley-isms. It's the way he thinks about his Moxley-isms. We should get that trending, Moxley-isms. But yeah, I just really wanted to say that because that really bothers the hell out of me.
Now, if you didn't know, this is the IWGP Championship.
Correction. IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. This is another thing that Jon Moxley does, that he doesn't remember titles or labels. And to be honest with me, like, that's not something that I would want in somebody, because you have to know what title you're carrying. Even if you think it's a big mouthful, you know, you can always probably try to convince management to shorten it or to change it up. But it is the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship title, not IWGP Heavyweight Championship. No, or the IWGP Championship. No, it's IWGP World Heavyweight Championship title. Give that belt respect the same way that New Japan Pro Wrestling is respecting you and giving you the full send to be their champion. You are carrying a legacy. He talks about that like it has a huge lineage and a legacy, but if you're not saying the full name correctly, like, come on, dude. You know, there are certain things that I'll let slide, like the terms of belt / title. I'm more of the, like, I saw this floating around on the internet about like the McMahon like terms. I'm more of the title. Don't call it a belt in my presence unless like it slips out. It's totally fine. I'm not gonna make a big deal. But essentially, you are carrying a championship title. I do accept championship belts. Just depends on the context, but I'm not really gonna blow up about it. But have the same pride and honor in the craft that you take on, meaning that like being a professional wrestler, wrestling in the ring, being safe and everything. Take that same pride and make sure you learn what belt you're carrying and, you know, who you're carrying it for, rather than just completely shortening it. But it is IWGP World Heavyweight Championship title. I really don't think so, but that's just me. And that has nothing with me doing it, like, not liking him.
In history, it is illustrious to the extreme, and I have been chasing it for 5 years. 5 years of pain and heartache, of wins and losses, pints of sweat and blood, thousands and thousands of miles back and forth across the ocean. I've been chasing it. 5 years ago, a lot of people said me holding this championship, especially holding this championship on live on Dynamite, was impossible. It wasn't impossible. Not if they knew what was in here. Not if they knew.
Again, it sounds like bullshit. It sounds like he has to convince himself that, you know, it's in here, guys. It's in here. It just doesn't sound genuine. It really doesn't. Especially when it's the same promo for the last 5 years. When it's the same words of the blood, the sweat, the miles flown back and forth. Like, every wrestler goes through that. Every wrestler leaves it all in the ring, whether they're bleeding every match or not bleeding every match. Like, Moxie makes himself to be this special martyr of like, this is why I'm champion, because it's all in here and I did all of this and it's all me. There's no like we. There's no like connecting with fans. If he was like saying like, he was at one point, I'm just, for the sake of this is an example. If he was like, at one point in his career, he was at the lowest of lows where, he was like overly thinking and like thinking maybe he couldn't do this anymore. But then the fans came along, the messages that he sees in his DMs, even though I know he doesn't check social media, but let's just say that he does. And like the warm, receptive fans that are like, hey, we believe in you. If he told those kind of stories, like any type of fan interaction where the fan is like, I believe in you, Moxley, like you could do this or whatever, or Moxley, you helped me get through this and blah, blah, blah. If he like said some of those stories, then maybe like he'll be more legitimate to my ears when cutting a promo. There's nothing legitimate about always saying that like, people thought I couldn't do it, but look at me now. I'm here. I could do it. Obviously, you could do it, sir. You made it in WWE as Dean Ambrose. You could do anything in the world. Of course, you were eventually going to win the title, just not like that. Like, there's a reason why fans of New Japan Pro Wrestling are not liking the fact that he's champion. It's because of how it happened. I'm going to repeat it again. It is based on how it happened against Naito on U.S. soil. Because if Naito versus Jon Moxley happened in Japan, we all know that Moxley would not be winning. Moxley would have lost in Japan. He would have stayed for the tour, and he probably would have been named in the G1. And then if he was named in the G1, like if it happened the way that I'm telling it, and if he won the G1, then I could be like, all right, go again for the title. Just so that way you can have it. You'll be part of your accolades, and we could see what happens. But most likely, Jon Moxley being champion is going to be leading into Forbidden Door, because why not, right? Why not? Even though he is an AEW contracted wrestler. So my thing is that like it does not matter how many times you tell me that you have bled, that you have sweated, that you have went from continent to continent on the airplane. It does not matter to me. How is that going to connect with me? How is that going to enhance my wrestling experience, my fan experience watching you cut this promo? How is that going to enhance anything? It really doesn't. It does not tell the fan nothing. This is why, like I said at the beginning, that if Jon Moxley sold you snake oil, you would definitely go buy it. Rather than questioning him and being like, are you like an actual human being? Like, do you go through moments of weakness? Do you go through moments of doubt? Because there are a lot of fans out there that experience this. And that, he can blur the lines between reality and kayfabe. He could blur the lines of, there's no extra blurring the lines other than like kayfabe and like reality. But he can also try to tell a story to help uplift someone who might be going through an obstacle. This is why I love professional wrestling. This is why I got into professional wrestling, because I see it as an art form and as a storyteller where basically it tells you how to overcome your fears. It tells you how to overcome obstacles. It tells you to never give up. If like someone is bullying you, there's a way to deal with that. And wrestling addresses these issues. I don't understand how telling me about like the amount of stuff you did, I can't relate to that, because none of us are in the world to just randomly walk up to somebody and like beat the shit out of them and have like a match and then be like, I bled because Jon Moxley said that he bleeds in matches and he left his sweat on the mat and I left my sweat in the playground. As stupid as that sounds. But you get the idea. You get the idea. I just don't understand how people are like, oh my God, this promo is fire. If this promo is fire, then you don't have common sense running through your brain.
What was inside me? Because that is what this is all about. When your back is against the wall, how deep.
First of all, his back is never against the wall. He's winning like probably like 90% of his matches. The 10% I have to be lenient because I would have to go into like either cage match or something just to get like, or acts like Chris Samsa, his Jon Moxley's like win to loss record and see if his back is truly against the wall. Like, sir, your back is not against the wall. You started your indie run right after WWE beating everybody. And then still beating people in AEW. And like I said, the 10% is that leeway that I have to give myself because I'm really not watching every one of his matches because it's the same shit. If you're going to do the same shit in every match, if you're going to bleed the same way in every match, no. If you're going to like try to do this tough guy bravado thing, like I mentioned in the Not My IWGP Championship last episode on the podcast, no, it's not going to work for me.
Can you dig when you feel like you've got nothing left, when you're choking on your own blood? How deep are you willing to dig? How far are you willing to go? Are you
Again, the same thing he's been saying for 5 years. What I mean, that's so vague. You know, that's so vague to just leave it like that and want to call it passion.
willing to dare to be great, to prove the doubters wrong, to show the world that's what AEW is about?
And then to switch it to AEW rather than like switch it to himself because he's holding a New Japan title. But to tell the world like, oh, this is what AEW is about. You know, I used to believe in the vision of AEW when it was 2019. I believed in the vision. I believed that it was going to change the world. I believed in the vision. But the vision has changed. And people are moving away from it. We could tell by the ratings. Numbers don't lie. Everyone else can lie, but numbers don't lie. That's like factual stuff. But it's like you're giving praise to let people know like this is what AEW is about. But sir, you are the New Japan champion. You're not even an AEW champion. Like, shouldn't you be talking about that for New Japan Pro Wrestling and putting over the fighting spirit that New Japan Pro Wrestling has and putting over Naito? Why have you not put over Naito yet? Naito is the badass that got the wrong end of the stick by dropping the belt. You know, Naito, Tanahashi, Okada helped build it. Sonata helped build it. Like Kenny helped build it. Like everybody that held the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship title overall has built it. So that way, Jon Moxley can be the one to show up on AEW with that championship title. And then there goes the chance for AEW.
Which brings me to my point, this Don Callis family. Some very, very talented individuals have got themselves in league with this Don Callis. Don Callis is a creep. I have no time for this Don Callis, and he is feeding them lies, and they are buying them. And what's worse, over the weekend, these guys, they put a hit out and tried to injure my friend, my teammate, Bryan Danielson.
Okay. This is also another thing that like I don't like that he does now is just that there's a time and place to call people out. If he feels that Don Callis is a creep, all right, cool. You take that up with him in the back. You take that up with him private. You talk to Don Callis. If this is true, you talk to him behind closed doors. You have a private conversation with him. You don't air out stuff on television if it's not written that way, if you guys didn't discuss it, even though I don't really think Don Callis really cares. But it's just the professionalism is that was not needed. The same way that, he ends up burying House of Torture, saying House of Torture, oh, they try to be cool, and Ren Narita wears a cape like The Undertaker, and it's like, you're not, did you forget how to, like, actually do a promo? Like, none of that is necessary. Those are all unnecessary, like, points to say about House of Torture. Like, the fans over here in the United States and over in Japan, we know that House of Torture is annoying. We know that sometimes they can be very uncool and they do a lot of things that some people don't like. Excuse me. And they do a lot of things that, like, don't make sense. They do a lot of shenanigans. But the point of a promo is not to air out, not to, like, really air out dirty laundry, but knowing when to say it, how to say it, and how to get people invested. Like, do we need to know that Don Callis is a creep? Like, did we really need to know that? Like, what is that really going to do for you? It's not really going to do anything for you. It's not going to do anything for the fans, and it's not going to do anything for Don Callis. And then saying that Don Callis is feeding the team that he has lies, that I could believe. However, are they not the strongest faction there at the moment? And then they go and attack Daniel Bryan, or Danielson. Let me just say Danielson. But yeah, it's just little things like that of, like, you got to think before you talk. You can't just be like, oh, I think he's a creep, and then pause as if, like, that's, like, the punchline, or you're waiting for people to react. Like, just say that, you don't appreciate your friends getting beat up on when you're not there, especially by the Don Callis family, because we know how sinister and evil and devious that the Callis family can get. But Jon Moxley just talks just to talk.
Now, if you're going to put a target on Brian's back, you might as well put a target on mine.
Also, another thing, just to say, and I know it feels like I'm nitpicking, like, every single little thing, but I do want to say that sometimes in wrestling, you got to let your friends fight their own battles. You can't always be like, oh my God, you're my friend. Oh my God, you got hurt and injured. All right, there's a target on my back too. There's a time for friendship, and then there's a time for, like, yo, go kick their ass. Like, I know you can do it. Go kick their ass. I'll be in your corner until, like, I really need to get in there. But if you don't really need to get in there, you don't really have to do that. So,
You guys want to get violent?
no.
You want to be tough guys?
I mean, they're more believable than him.
So come find me. I'll be here all night. But I suspect maybe I'm not your type. Now, what I could do is run up on y'all with a
What?
tire iron and blast you in the back of the head. What I could do is run you over with a car in the parking lot here tonight. But I get the sense that you won't learn nothing. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick the biggest, baddest, meanest one of all y'all. Powerhouse Will Hobbs. And I'm going to challenge Will Hobbs to a match 1 week from tonight in the main event of Dynamite in Jacksonville.
Okay.
And will accept. And in that match, Will find out just how out of his depth he is when he steps into the ring with the IWGP World Champion.
All right, so now he said world champion, but it's world heavyweight champion.
And I'm not going deepest waters that there are. And he will look around and he will see no shoreline. And when he asks the referee to come rescue him or he sinks to the bottom of the ocean, he will know. He will know the difference between me and him. And he will know that Don Callis is feeding him lies. He will know that him, just like everybody else in this business, none of you, nobody can touch me. There are a lot of great wrestlers in the world, but there is only one, and there is ever going to be one.
Oh,
Jon
God.
Moxley.
Oh, God. Oh, God. You know, nobody denies that there's going to be a multiple of Jon Moxley's. Like, no one denies him anything. I don't understand this. This is where, like, the disconnect happens, and he gets into his head that he thinks that everyone is against him when that's not the case. You do have the Bad Bunch that's on the internet. I'm not talking about the Bad Bunch. I'm talking about the fans, and I'm talking about someone like me who analyzes this and tries to make it a little bit more better. We are not against you. We're not. And by the way, that promo made no sense about like why he wanted Hobbs. Like, I would have to, someone in the comments would have to let me know if Hobbs had attacked Danielson and if he was the main person in attacking Danielson. But why would you say that you are going to drag Hobbs down to the deepest parts of the ocean? And I'm paraphrasing him. I'm trying to remember what he said. Why would you say that you'll drag Hobbs down to the deepest part of the ocean, and then you will now know, well, when he gets there, he'll know the difference between Jon Moxley and Don Callis, and he will know that Don Callis is feeding him lies, and that the referee will be like, nah, you're miles away from shore. What? How does beating up your opponent going to let him know that Don Callis is feeding him lies? How does that work? The way you get someone to understand if someone is feeding them lies is if you have a conversation with them. But Moxley doesn't like to have a conversation with nobody. He's like, I'm going to strike first, and then I'm going to leave, and I'm going to do the same thing. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, even for all the years that I've watched professional wrestling, and then now that I talk about it and I analyze it, like, there are scuffles that men get into because sometimes men just have a lot of testosterone going on and they get into scuffles, and sometimes that scuffle can give them the answers that they were seeking earlier, but they couldn't really talk about it. But this is totally different. This is not like a scuffle that Jon Moxley and Will Hobbs is going to be doing. This is a match that's going to happen. So I don't understand how Will Hobbs is going to understand that Don Callis is lying to him. And when we do get to that, when we do get to Will Hobbs finding out that Don Callis is lying to him, and if Will Hobbs decides to leave, does that mean there's an open spot on the Blackpool Combat Club? Because if you're going to be beating up your opponent that bad, where they miraculously see the lies of Don Callis, their leader of their team, does that mean that he gets to go over to the Blackpool Combat Club? Because in AEW, they follow the New Japan Pro Wrestling structure of everyone has to be in a team. Everyone has to have a friendship with the faction. So, you know, can he jump from one team to another? And how do we know you're not lying in kayfabe? Like, excuse me. Like, how do we know that you're not lying either? Like, this is why I just, it may seem like I'm ranting. It may seem like I'm attacking him, but I'm really not. I'm analyzing the promo. I'm questioning things that don't make sense. I'm adding context to the commentary. And it's just one of those things of like, Jon does not know how to do promos. He may know how to do promos, but they haven't improved at all because it doesn't make any sense. He gets so fiery and so passionate that he forgets that it's about telling a story. You know, how is Don Callis lying? For anyone that tunes in that is new, how is Don Callis lying? And how would that new viewer know that he's lying? You know, I'm not saying that Moxie has to stand there and do like a 20-minute monologue. No, he doesn't have to do that. The Rock, the final boss, on the other hand, like, can do whatever he wants and make a 20-minute promo and people will eat it up. But Moxie just has to pick and choose and learn how to storytell and know what to say, when to say it, and why it's happening. Just because Danielson gets beat up doesn't mean like Danielson can't fight his own battles. Danielson is the guy that was championing around the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship title back in the day as the champion with a separated shoulder. This is how dedicated and how dangerous Danielson is. Does he need the backup? No, he really doesn't need the backup. But like, I don't really know why Jon Moxley wants to call out the biggest person. You know, I can understand if like Moxley cut his promo and then as soon as he brought up Danielson, do you know how awesome it would have been if the Don Callis family did come out, if Will Hobbs came out with a microphone and basically told Jon Moxley, oh, you want to talk about your little friend, Danielson? Well, let's talk about Danielson because I'm the one that took him out. And you should have been here to see it because I'm the powerhouse Will Hobbs. Like, you have to play up the character. You have to play up the emotion. It can't just be like, Hobbs, I'm calling you out because you beat up Danielson and I'm going to take you down to the deepest parts of the ocean and then you'll finally see that Don Callis is lying to you and that you'll know the difference between you and I. What? There's a huge difference between Will Hobbs and Jon Moxley. One likes to bleed. The other one should have been a fucking made star and should have been at the top of the mountain. Because I believed in Will Hobbs and Will Hobbs is now resorted to whatever he's doing nowadays. Like, you know, to put over Will Hobbs, because I really did fucking like him, man. Like, I like that he had the look and he had a really nice character to go on. The Book of Hobbs was amazing. And I'm going to call it a gimmick. The Book of Hobbs was amazing. He could have went, you know, to the top with that. He could have been, you know, the main event star. It could have been cinema. And I know you guys don't like the word cinema, but he could have made cinema by just using the Book of Hobbs. And then he's doing this, which, you know, it is what it is because AEW does not have structure. AEW does not have continuity. And it's like, we need something to hold everything together. You can't just have everyone run however they want to run because essentially it's a business. The more good ratings that you do, the more cash that you bring in, the more deals you're going to have, the more sponsorships you're going to have. Like, you have to look at it as a business. And yes, it's not fair. It's not fair across the board, and I totally get that. But it's a business, and it's something that you dedicate your life to. And professional wrestling is one of the most cutthroat businesses there are. You know, you can't be everyone's friend. You have to know when to cut who you want to cut, keep who you want to keep, and elevate everybody. And tell everybody that, like, we're going to do great today. And we're going to make more money than ever before. And we're going to keep our heads down. Because you don't have to, like, take jabs at the other place. But I am digressing to the overall point of this is that I did not understand Jon Moxley's promo. I wonder if you guys understood it, because I did not understand it. And basically, like, I wish that Jon Moxley can take advice from people. I have no problem teaching people. I have no ill will against Moxley or anybody else. I just want Moxley to improve. And I think the best way for him to improve is to finally take his vacation, is to get off of television, to stop doing indie bookings, to stop wrestling and relax, take a vacation. He's being overexposed. And that's why he gets the reaction that he gets. Because if people did not like him winning the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship title, then that says a lot. It's like, dude, you're doing too much. You know, if he decided to, or if Tony Khan decided to put him in a tag team, that would have been like a nice sort of cool off, because he's in a tag team. And then maybe he won't get shitted on as much, because I think most people would just consider this whole thing like shitting on him rather than trying to help him basically become better. Because I believe in him. I believe in everyone else. I believe in the world of professional wrestling. So this isn't me like, you know, trying to be very hard on him, but he is a professional. This is a sport. This is an art form. It's like, you can be better than this. And this is basically what I do. And so, you know, another thing that could have happened during this promo is have Ren Narita fly him out, so that way we can start the build between Jon Moxley and Ren Narita when it comes to Dantaku on like May 3rd, May 4th. Like, that is Jon Moxley's first defense of that IWGP World Heavyweight Championship title. That May 4th, like that May 3rd, May 4th date. And that's way too long. He's not even going to be on the road to Dantaku, which is like, you got to be there because you're their champion. You know, take Will Hobbs with you over to Japan. You know, take him with you. If you think like Don Callis is lying to him, take him with you, man. Let Hobbs experience Japan for a little bit. But yeah, like they could have flown out Ren Narita, and they could have had a very good build-up somehow. Or have Ren Narita attack him and be like, oh, this belt is mine. Hold it hostage for a little bit. Do something like House of Torture style. Or Jack Perry could have showed up at this point with Ren Narita, talk for Ren Narita, and then bam! We have another interesting segment. Because, let's be honest, New Japan Pro Wrestling also announced too that at Resurgence, which is May 11th, not that far away from the Dantaku May 3rd, May 4th date. But May 11th is Resurgence, and the main event is, depending on who wins on May 3rd, May 4th, which most likely will be Jon Moxley. They're not going to give it to Ren Narita. Ren Narita is still one of the, he's no longer a young lion. He graduated, but he's one of like the four core of the young lions, former young lions, I should say. But we all know that they are not going to give it to Ren Narita. So, May 11th is going to have most likely Jon Moxley versus Shota. And I was told by fans that this would have been that it's going to be a wholesome story with a wholesome match for New Japan Pro Wrestling to give Shota Umino, or as Americans know him as Shooter, because Jon Moxley doesn't want to take the time to learn someone's name, Shota Umino. You know, this would be a wholesome match, a wholesome story, and then they're going to give it to Shota Umino. I don't think that's going to be the case. I really do not think that's going to be the case at all. I think that Moxley is going to retain it. He's going to go for Forbidden Door with the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, even as a contracted AEW wrestler. And hopefully he loses it at Forbidden Door, because it makes no sense. You have Forbidden Door. It doesn't feel like Forbidden Door anyway, because you have a lot of the New Japan guys coming over to AEW being signed. And then Moxley's holding a New Japan belt while still being AEW wrestler. So what is so Forbidden Door about it? There is no Forbidden Door about it at all. But yeah, it would have been nice if like they would have flown out Ren Narita, flown out Jack Perry. Jack Perry starts some shit with Jon Moxley on behalf of Ren Narita, so we could set that up. And I wouldn't even be mad if they gave the belt to Jack Perry. But then again, this might come bite me in the ass only because Jack Perry might still be an AEW wrestler, even though he ripped up the contract when he first shockingly came out to attack Shota. You know, he still might be contracted with AEW, but I don't know who tells the truth and who lies over in AEW. AEW has so much bad baggage that I can't tell who's telling the truth and who's lying. So, that's also another thing too. Another, not even a segue, but a little tip, not even tidbit. But if Jon Moxley is going to say that Don Callis is filled with lies, that he's just lying to Will Hobbs, well, AEW has been using the dirt sheets to send out their lies for like months and their propaganda. So, So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of me talking about Jon Moxley's promo and breaking it down. And we're going to take a quick break. This is going to be a part 1 and part 2. This is basically part 1 of me talking about the Jon Moxley promo. And I hope you learned something. And if you did learn something, let me know down in the comments. My whole entire goal is to make sure that wrestling was better than it was yesterday. And even if you don't agree, please keep it respectful. And no need to attack. No need for insults. Do not get emotional. It's okay. It's going to be okay. I highly appreciate you guys commenting, sharing, liking, and telling your friends about the Square Circle Podcast by your host, Marie Shadows. Now, when we come back from break, which will be part 2, I will be diving into the wrestling terminology of workhorse. See you then.